This is R.A. Sweeney here to talk to you about another prayer from the book Prayers from the Time of Jesus. We've made it to the Bedtime Blessings. As you look at them, you'll notice the spacing kind of breaks it up into three chunks just a little bit. There's a subtle difference in the spacing that breaks it into three chunks, and in this video we're just going to talk about that first chunk. But all of these prayers together, this is the end of the day right as you're going to bed. So it's designed to kind of bookend the day, just like the Mode Ani prayer is the one that you pray right when you wake up, before you get out of bed, before your feet touch the ground, any of those things, you pray that prayer. This is designed to be kind of the other end of your day. So you would pray this prayer right as you're getting ready for bed. You might kneel at your bedside. You might sit and pray. We all come together as a family and we pray this together before heading back to our rooms to go to bed. So it's whatever works for you, but it's really designed to be the end of the day. And so the first part of this prayer in Hebrew would be Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam borei yom ve'leila golel or mipni choshek vechoshek mipni or Baruch atah Yahweh Ha'ma'ariv Aravim. And in English, it'd be, Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of all creation. He establishes order of day and night. He rolls away light from the face of darkness, and darkness from the face of light. Blessed are you, Lord, the one who evening. So the body of this prayer starts with a word that we've already looked at, the word bore. That means to establish order or to give purpose. It's what we said God was doing in Genesis 1, where he was taking just this chaotic world that didn't have any order in it. It couldn't sustain life, and it didn't have life because it couldn't sustain it. And so he took that and he spoke into it and he ordered it so that it might sustain light. And so the first part of what he ordered was there was darkness over the surface of the deep waters, the chaotic waters. And darkness there is the word choshek, which is what we use here in this prayer. And he separates the light from the darkness and he calls the light day, which is yom, and the night he calls leila. So that's where we have bore yom we leila. He establishes that order of daytime and nighttime. And when he established that order, he called it good. That was the first good thing he did to start shaping the dark, uninhabitable wasteland of creation into the beautiful place that has abundant life throughout Genesis 1. So it's the same exact language that we see in Genesis 1. He's separating the day from the night. But then we get into this idea of rolling away light from darkness and darkness from light, which for me struck me as really odd when I first came to it, but I really began to appreciate the language. So the word rolling away, it's not real common in a lot of ways that it gets used, but it's the word galal is the root word there. And so when you look up how that word gets used, a lot of times it's going to be talking about the reversing of fortunes. So in Joshua 4, for instance, God is talking to Joshua getting ready to enter the land, and he says, look, I am rolling away the reproach of Egypt from you. You were lowly slaves, and I'm reversing that and bringing you into a higher place, making you, giving you a higher station or status in life. Then in Judges 2, the same sort of language is used again, and it's talking about turning slavery into a relationship with God and the promises of the Holy Land and those things. So again, it's reversing the fortunes of you were low, and I'm bringing you into a better place. And then in 1 Samuel, when the people were worried about not having a king, they didn't like how things were going with the judges, nor should they, because things were not going well. And so they wanted to bring in a king, and so they talked about rolling away, galaling their fortunes, so in the renewing of the kingdom into a kingship. So again, things weren't going well. Their enemies kept bringing them low, and their hope with making a king was that it would bring them high, and it did for a little bit. So Saul was low, the people were low, and then when he became king, it reversed the fortune and rolled it up to that high sort of station. But then we have a couple of places where Saul fails. He was supposed to wait for Samuel to make a sacrifice, and he got scared, and he just offered the sacrifice himself, so he disobeyed. And then another time he was supposed to fight his enemies and kill everybody, including their animals, and it was supposed to just be, getting rid of every single being of the enemy in 1 Samuel 15. And Saul didn't obey there. And in both places, the setting of Saul's disobedience is a place called Gilgal. Gilgal, which comes from Galal. So it's the place where Saul was up here. The nation was up here. Things were going really well, but then because of Saul's disobedience, it rolled that over and brought them back down to that low station. The other thing that I found out that was really, really cool about this word Galal is that's where the word Galilee comes from. And so when we think of that idea of reversing fortunes, we think of who came from Galilee, and it's just kind of a really cool way that that fits together as well. Another way that the word galal gets used, not quite as common in the Old Testament, but the idea carries into the New Testament, is in Isaiah 34. We see a picture of the skies being rolled up like a scroll, is the way that it's described. And it uses that same word, galal. There, it's not a good thing. It's in a pronouncement of doom that God's going to bring justice to people who really need to have justice served upon them. And to begin with, he rolls the sky open like a scroll. And we see the same thing in Revelation when the seals are being broken, the sixth seal, the sky is rolled away like a scroll, almost like, okay, this is getting put away, it's done. So it's rolled up to be set aside. But the other cool place that it's used is in Luke 3 during the baptism. The skies were rolled open. And in Revelation and Luke, it's not in Hebrew, it's in Greek, but the language they use references back um, to the Hebrew word galal. And so I think what's going on here in the baptism, obviously it's a positive thing, but for the other two, it's not really described as positive. But you need to look at what's going on in those passages. It's passages about God bringing justice. And so he's rolling open the skies so that he can come bring justice to the wicked in those places. And then in Luke 3, he's rolling open the skies so he can bring mercy and generosity and love and life and abundance to those who desire after him. So it's really this idea of rolling away what was before so that God can usher in the love and the generosity and the mercy, but also the justice that he wants in his world. So again, it still carries that idea of reversing fortunes. So the way I look at this, he's rolling away the light from the face of darkness, has that idea of rolling up like a scroll, but it's saying, like, you've had this day, and there's been things that weren't the way that God wanted them to be for that day, ways that people have failed to live up to his ideal. And that's all being rolled up and put away, and darkness is coming, and we've got a fresh chance for fortunes to be reversed. So any cruelty that happened during the day is going to be kind of started over again at the night. Any wickedness during the day, we've got this fresh start with the darkness, and then in the darkness, it gets rolled away. So any of the fear that you might have in darkness, any of the struggles or the hardship in the darkness, those get rolled away, and we've got a fresh start. So it almost is like this idea of giving us two fresh starts in the day. Then the prayer closes with the same language we had at the twilight prayer, where it uses the word evening as a verb as well as a noun. So God is the one who perfectly brings evening, or he's the one that evening. I like to describe it as blending the lights of evening, because like we talked about, I feel like that's kind of what the idea of evening or twilight means, is where you've got the mingling of the two lights. And so I really like that idea of just the changing of fortunes every time that the light changes. So twice a day, we've got this fresh start where we've got these two domains, light and darkness, and we start out in one and see how that goes. And God is able to renew good and dispose of bad twice a day, which obviously it's more than twice a day, but just this cycling idea towards life and abundance and Eden, because a lot of it is Eden language. But then it starts out with God's the one who does all of that. And so it asserts God's sovereignty in this cycle where you're like, man, I don't know how this is going to go. We've got this repeated cycling, and it doesn't, at least from my perspective, the world doesn't seem to be cycling towards good, but it asserts God's sovereignty over all of this so that we know as we are coming into a new day or a new night that we can trust God in that time. So I love that as the bookend of the day. We wake up with praise and adoration, and then we close the day with this idea of trusting God's sovereignty as we are shifting from day to night, and then again from night into day as we wake up again. So that is the first part of the bedtime blessings. I hope it was a blessing to you, and stay tuned. We will keep working through the bedtime blessings. Thank you.